You know, all this talk and controversy about Pete Hegseth, the only thing I haven't heard mentioned is how he slept his way to the top. His latest wife, the third one, that he cheated on his second wife with. But so the third wife was actually his boss. It was his boss. She was the producer of his show. And I don't hear anybody talking about how he slept his way to the top. It's weird.
Just want to update you guys on two things. Number one, the levels of unhinged on TikTok right now are unprecedented, and I say that in the best way possible. Is the highest compliment I could ever give. Second thing, this guy Pete Hegseth, catching up on his Senate confirmation hearing for the Secretary of Defense position. If you don't know who Pete Hegseth is, you guys get excited because we have a new abuser in our government. But it's okay because he's a God-fearing man. He's a Christian, so he's thinking about Jesus when he's doing his essays. By the way, his own mother is embarrassed of him and has denounced him because of how abusive he is. But anyway, he's going to protect our country, y'all, as Secretary of Defense. Anyway, should we move to China?
I feel like with the fires going on and everything and just like the state of the country at the moment, now is a really good time to kind of drop this bomb again and remind everyone that not everything happens for a reason. If you believe that, fine, your life is probably more blissful than us who don't believe that. But for people that don't believe that, for you to say to someone, well, everything happens for a reason, you're asking to get clocked.
Poor Pete Hegseth and Tom Cotton. I want you to watch Senator Sheehan and Senator Gillibrand eat them up. I cut this together and it was just not enough credit is being given to these two ladies. So watch and enjoy.
Homeland Security. It mandates that women be included in all aspects of our national security, including conflict resolution and peace negotiations. And at the Department of Defense, it has been the law for 8 years under both the Trump and Biden administrations. The DoD has incorporated women throughout its decision-making as a result. Every single combatant commander across 2 administrations has told this committee that this law and its implementation at the Department of Defense provides them a strategic advantage operationally. Based on your comments, it appears that the example that you would like to set, not only for women in this country, but for women across the globe, 50% of the world's population, as the prospective nominee to lead the most combat-credible military in the entire world, is that women should not have an equal opportunity in our military. So will you commit to preserving the Women, Peace, and Security Law at DoD?
And straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. I will commit to reviewing that program and ensuring it aligns with America First national security priorities, meritocracy, lethality, and readiness. And if it advances American interests, it's something we would advance. If it doesn't, it's something we would advance.
Former President Trump signed the law. I hope that he agrees with you.
So women have been serving in combat for a long time. Women have been serving in combat units like infantry battalions for a long time in roles like medics or mechanics or what have you. So what we're talking about here specifically is women in ground combat roles in jobs like infantrymen or artillerymen or special forces. Until about 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. Under Secretary Panetta, those roles were opened up to women.
I would point out, ensuring that standards are equal and high is of importance to him and great importance to me.
And the standards, your 2 mile run, Tom, is about the Army Combat Fitness Test. It is not the requirements to have an MOS 11 Bravo, which is the infantry. These are the requirements today for people serving in industry, men and women. They are gender neutral, and they are very difficult to meet. They have not been reduced in any way, and our combat units, our infantry is lethal. And in all of these other circumstances, you've denigrated active duty service members. We have hundreds of women who are currently in the infantry, lethal members of our military serving in the infantry, but you degrade them. You say, we need moms, but not in the military.
And I would point out, I've never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform past and present. My straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty.
Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized statements.
Quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women.
Commanders do not have to be quotas for the infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist. And your statements are creating the impression that these exist, because they do not. They are not quotas. We want the most lethal force.
One military, and if the military goes woke, then it is less equipped to fight the wars it needs to fight.
But I'm telling you, having been here for 15 years, listening to testimony about men and women in combat and the type of operations that were successful in Afghanistan and in Iraq, women were essential for many of those units. When Ranger units went in to find where the terrorists hiding in Afghanistan or in Iraq, if they had a woman in the unit, they could go in, talk to the women in a village, say, where are the terrorists hiding? Where are the weapons hiding? And get crucial information to make sure that we can win that battle. So you cannot denigrate women in general, and your statements do that. We don't want women in the military, especially in combat. What a terrible statement. So please, do not deny that you made those statements. You have.
Social justice, politically correct, environmental, LGBT, non-CRT, DEI nonsense that divides the force, makes it weaker.
I don't think that you can go in there with the resume that he has. His private sector experience is basically running a small Veterans Affairs charity that does important work, but it doesn't oversee 3.5 million people all over the world. I think people also forget that the Department of Defense also oversees the Defense Intelligence Department agency, which is under it. It oversees the military and civilian population. There's contractors there. There's, even within the Pentagon alone, there's like dozens and dozens of businesses. There's parts of it that are almost like a mall. You have to have a certain level of managerial experience. And then add to that his comments about women in combat, I strongly disagree with. Women have been some of our best fighter pilots. They've held very senior ranks. We have generals who are women. There are distinctions of certain roles that women can't do. There are women who've graduated as Rangers, and but there are certain things they can't necessarily do as well, and there are other things they do better than men. He has kind of revised those, but my long and short is I don't know. There aren't answers he could give that are going to make up for the resume deficit, in my opinion, and it's too important of a job. And finally, the Secretary of Defense is the only person other than the President of the United States who can deploy troops. And that is a grave and serious power that is given to that person. You need somebody who has the highest character, the best judgment, and the best experience to do that. And he just, if you look at his predecessors, he's not even in the same league. If he wants to come back in 25 years when he's run a major organization, fine, I guess.
The lawful commander
We're
in
not
chief of
talking
this
about
country.
the election. My question is, would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland and take over the Panama Canal. Current DoD policy allows service members and eligible dependents to be reimbursed for travel associated with non-covered reproductive health care, including abortions. Will you maintain this common sense policy?
Senator, I've always been personally pro-life. I know President Trump has as well, and we will review all policies. But our standard is whatever the president wants on this particular issue.
So,
with my advice, I will take a look at.
If the president tells you that this common sense policy will not be maintained, you will not enable our service members to seek reproductive care.
You have made statements to your platoon after being briefed by a JAG officer. Well, by the way, would you explain what a JAG off is?
I don't think I need to, sir.
Why not?
Because the men and women watching understand.
Well, perhaps some of my colleagues don't understand.
It would be a JAG officer who puts his or her own priorities in front of the warfighters. Their promotions, their medals, in front of having the backs of those who are making the tough calls on the front lines.
Thank you, Senator Reid.
Interesting.